never mention sex at all, or very...
Sort of do.
Don't mention genitalia.
Free reign.
She's just going to go for it now. She's going to be like,
Let's talk
and about Jen.
Decoded, brought to you by the experts at eharmony. This week we've got a slightly different topic. We will be exploring generational attitudes to sex and love. I'm joined by eharmony's relationship expert Rachael Lloyd.
Hello, I'm the old boiler.
Well, and me too. And to represent the young people, lifestyle blogger Lela London.
Hello.
Welcome, Lela.
Hi, Lela.
Delighted that you've come today.
Thank you.
So we'll be answering your questions throughout the show. So please post your comments in the section below. Rachel and Lela, welcome to the show. And I've got a long question here to ask you to start.
Yeah, why don't you guess the white paper?
I'm putting my glasses on to read it because it's important we get the stats right. So, some research that came out earlier this summer from University College London, it suggests that 1 in 8, I worked that out as 12.5%, of 26-year-olds had never had sex. So 12.5% of 26-year-olds are virgins, up from 1 in 20 a generation ago. So this fueled a lot of debate about millenniums being more conservative or more upright than the older generation. Like, I just looked through the headlines last night and it was like, oh, no sex please, we're millennials. they went to town, the tabloids. So what do you make of this?
Okay, I'm dying to know what you think.
I think the important thing to remember here is that there are still 7 out of 8 people who are having sex at this age, and there's always going to be different groups of people with different attitudes towards sex and different sexual preferences. For 1 in 8 to be not having sex shouldn't be a surprise for anybody. There are obviously going to be groups of people around that are saving themselves from marriage, haven't found the right person yet, don't feel comfortable approaching that at any age, let alone millennial age, be it teenagers, be it in their 30s. So I think we need a more open-minded approach to the fact that that's a personal preference, and if people aren't having sex, that's not necessarily being a prude, that's a personal choice.
I think it's the trends that always excites the journalist, the fact that it has changed in a decade. And if we're talking about trends, if you Google virgins in Japan, their research out a couple of years.
Which you do every night.
Of course. I've come on to it. It's my 19-year-old son who told me to do that. He said, Mum, the stats in Japan, this comes from Japan. Again, I'll put my glass on notes, 42% of women, 44% of men in Japan were virgins at 34. There's this, they think it's a whole societal problem because they've got this aging population, and the younger generation, they're just going, we don't want sex. There's been all this analysis.
But what's the theory? Why don't they want sex?
So some of the theory is economic. They've had a downturn in the economy, so young men especially don't want to have sex before they're married, and it's to do with shame. They feel they're less of a man if they don't earn a lot of money, so they can't approach a woman.
Wow.
And then there's this theory that because they're doing a lot of virtual sex, this idea of the pornification of society, it's safer because it's so exposing to have a proper relationship. So they are getting their kicks through that.
Yeah.
And so then the analysts would say, is that trend coming over here? Because you know.
I mean, just to tie in with eharmony research that we've actually done with Imperial College London, every year we do a report called Future of Dating, and we look at trends going forward. And what you're saying about Japan tallies with what we found last year when we did our study, which is that, if you like, digital sex is going to become increasingly common among younger generations. And some of them may even go through a whole lifetime without actually having flesh-on-flesh sex, which is quite alarming. Of course, there will always be, I think, a majority that yearn for intimacy and want real relationships. Absolutely. But I can see why, in a sense, if the technology is really good and, you know, it's getting better all the time, you can almost have a relationship entirely in a digital world.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like virtual reality, I suppose, but it becomes your reality.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a good thing, and obviously it's not something that we'd champion, But it's nevertheless interesting.
But it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. What do you make of that? Do you think that's the way things are going?
I don't necessarily know it's the way things are going, but I do remember watching a documentary a few years ago about sexual culture in Japan and how things are changing and that it's becoming much more virtual. And a huge contribution to it was that women in Japan, who have always been seen as second-class citizens, were starting to become CEOs, starting to reclaim their space, starting to become their own individuals, and that was really intimidating for men. So to have an almost docile virtual girlfriend or whatever else fills that intimacy hole for them is no longer replaced by actual living women, but it's much easier and manageable to have a virtual
Because we're too much trouble in real life.
We are, aren't we?
And that I thought you were going to say, I saw a documentary last year, I wonder if you two saw it, about the development of very smart AI sex dolls.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And, you know, the guy who they were doing the
quite
prototype
creepy,
with,
though.
oh, really creepy. But again, I could see why, if you are terrified of real relationships.
Real intimacy.
Real intimacy. Why? And again, it's about the docility. You can have her created to be exactly what you, and she'll never answer back, she'll never ask you to take the bins out or empty the dishwasher.
Yeah.
But this is
a bit boring, though.
Big Brother dystopian future, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we also know from our research that people who over-index on the eHarmony sort of algorithm, if you like, as intelligent women, see a slight decline in interest. And that's something that really surprised us. That's new research that we found. It really shocked us, actually, but I don't know why it does.
Yeah.
Perhaps we like to think that we're this massively progressive society, but at some level, we're still super traditional, you know, and there is a kind of paradox going on.
And in fact, again, what I read in my research, which totally chimes with my own hypothesis, is that the hypersexualization of society, the increasing, like the pornification, but it's so hyped up, has actually made young people, and maybe all generations, more fearful of like performance, getting it wrong. And someone said this thing about, you know, and this brought me to think very highly of eHarmony, how useful it is. It said, so many people now, they tick the kind of just sex, just hookups, because it's too humiliating to say, actually, I'm looking for love, romance, a life partner. They're covering themselves emotionally, and they're saying that, but that isn't really what they want. So that if the other person doesn't want it either, they haven't opened themselves to rejection, failure, humiliation. So I thought that's so the place for sites like eHarmony, because at least you can be honest and say,
you can say
I'm
exactly
looking
what you
for
want.
love, I'm looking for a life partner, and not having to pretend you just want sex.
Well, you only really come to eHarmony if you're looking for a relationship, a meaningful relationship. So in a way, that does filter for you, which is a fantastic thing.
Isn't it?
But I mean, I am still really quite interested in this research about millennials, and I think, is it 1 in 8 people are virgins at 26?
Yeah.
So I am still, I mean, I think I must. I don't know, I grew up in an environment where being a virgin was a shameful thing. You know, like if you were, people at school, I remember them talking in a sort of sexual way when I was in my early teens, and it was too much for me.
Yeah.
Like people were dating and there was an ambiguity about what dating meant. Like we're talking about people that are pre-16. And then after that, I mean, there's films like The 40-Year-Old Virgin. You remember that comedy? And so I think certainly I can't speak for the younger gen, but certainly for Generation X upwards, I think that there was or is a pressure to rid yourself of your virginity at a certain age.
Absolutely.
And that wouldn't be 26. It would probably be something like 18, 20, 21, you know. But that's only my subjective experience. I don't know if it's different for you.
I think it rings true. I think there are all sorts of societal expectations put on us, and especially when it comes to college or university age, that is sometimes when we become adults, and that also means sex, and that also means getting into a serious relationship or whatever that may mean. And I think potentially the reason that these numbers are rising is that there are also a lot of men and women going, well, actually it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't need to go have sex with somebody. I don't need to be in a serious relationship. I don't know what kind of person I want to date, what gender of person I want to date. It's all open-minded, and if I'm gonna be an adult and learn about myself, then that's also gonna be in a sexual respect too.
Yeah.
I would really hope that would, for me, would be the optimistic explanation, that people were doing it out of a sense of empowerment. I
hope so.
But my own kind of, you know, experiential of my clients, and then talking to my 19-year-old son. Yeah, he said, the 19-year-old said in his uni hall last year, like 6 rooms around a kitchen, 2 of those, 1 male, 1 female, were virgins, not openly admitting it, but he knew.
Yeah.
And he said the longer it takes, like the woman was really, it felt like a burden to her, it was embarrassing, but both of them said, you pass a certain age and you get really fearful that you'll get it wrong the first time will be humiliating. And again, I read something on the internet last night that said they thought men past a certain age, because you have to be more performative as a man, and they've been brought up, a lot of their sex ed comes from porn.
Yeah.
And so this idea of like the constant erection, and that's what it means to be a man, they fear of humiliation, like a girl might put them on Facebook.
Yeah,
if
we
they
didn't have access to porn in the same way. Like, you might get an old VHS tape that was sort of, you know, battered from somewhere, and all share it and go, oh my goodness. But you didn't have, you know, the digital porn movement.
I know, which again, my son said you're seeing that stuff now in the primary school playground. Yeah. You are seeing that under 11. You're seeing that at 9, 10, 11. They said it's terrifying. Yeah. It's so frightening because what did my son had a great phrase. He said, oh, I realise now that women don't have to sound like pigeons going through the woodcutter when they orgasm. I went, what do you mean? He didn't impersonate his son. That's true. How scary is that? And how unrealistic.
Yeah, it can either, I do believe, completely desensitize you, or if you're talking about it with people, which most people aren't, it can open your mind up. It can show you how silly porn is versus real sex. But there are obviously going to be people who just view that as education, and that is scary.
Lela, I have to say, I love you. What a great guest you are, because you are being positively reframing everything that Rachel and I can't say, oh, the society's all the world. So now I'm going to come back to you, the next bit of the question, the next research, and this comes to you quite personally.
Yeah.
Another bit of research out, I think last year, said that, let me get my glasses again, 43%, oh, this is from YouGov, 43% of 18 to 24-year-olds said that they were sexually fluid. So on the Kinsey scale of 0 to 6, where one end is completely heterosexual, one end is completely homosexual, 43% put them in the middle as sexually fluid. You yourself came out in an article in the Metro this year as did you say sexually fluid or did you say bisexual? You said bisexual.
Bisexual, yeah.
And you've had lots of reaction to that.
Can you explain, just for the nanas like me, the difference between sexually fluid and bisexual, and, you know?
I think, me personally, it's all very relative. I think there's terms for everything. There's pansexual, which is open to everything, be that trans, man, female, whatever the person is identifying as in their gender. Me, it's bisexual because I identify as a woman. I am open-minded towards both men and women. And it took me about 2 decades to really get comfortable with that idea. And I'm very open sexually. I talk to all my friends about everything and talk in journalism about all sorts. But for whatever reason, felt like I was kind of holding that part back for myself. And as I, you know, go through the world and see more younger people being brave, as we often call it, and coming out and doing these things, I thought, why am I not doing that as well? Because realistically, we need to achieve a point where it's not a brave thing to be who you are. That it's just, that's my sexuality, and that's just a part of who I am. So if I was having some sort of personal anxiety about that, I felt it was my duty to go out and say, no, I'm gonna represent these people because I am these people, and we're all these people. And I do believe it's a spectrum, absolutely. I think there are people who are fully gay. There are people who are fully straight. Not saying everyone's bisexual, but for the majority of people, there is somewhere on this Kinsey spectrum where people will lie, and that could be that they find men or women more attractive or more sexually appealing, but maybe don't ever want to date one. It could be people that are completely open-minded. It doesn't really matter who you are. You don't even see gender. But that again comes down to the personal ideal of what does that mean for you, and if you're going out into the world and you're not bothered by what somebody looks like or you know, how they identify, then you should be able to call yourself bisexual, pansexual without an issue.
So again, I tried that one because it said 18 to 24-year-olds. I asked my 19-year-old, did that ring true for him?
He needs to just come on the show.
I know, I thought we'll get them on. Pull up a chair. He said, oh yeah, he thought that statistic was about right. And I said, but do you mean half the people you know, half your friends would identify as sexually fluid? And he said, yeah, probably. And I said, well, what does that actually mean to you? And he said, well, you know, patronising, he's my son. He said, well, Mum, you know, if we were going out for a club tonight, you don't know if you're going to kiss or go home with a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. He said, it's about, I think he said something really, really wise but patronising, it's about relating to the human being. And I'm like, really? But don't you know if you know, what about sexual attraction? He said, yeah, So would that relate, well, Rachel, what do you think about it? I mean, it's such a high number to me. I just thought they were being a bit trendy, it's fashionable.
Well, I mean, I feel that it's I mean, your son's educating me, because again, I come from a generation where everything was far more structured and you were in one camp or the other, and you know, so this is all, I guess what's really extraordinary is the evolution of the way that we identify and we behave, and the fact that that's happening quite fast. And that I really find, from a sociological point of view, I can't say that, I think it's really fascinating. You know?
Do you think, both of you, that that is then speeded up by the digital age? By dating apps, by people blogging?
People can be more adventurous through the digital world, can't they?
I suppose.
Yeah.
I also think the representation of those types of people, you know, when I was young and I saw lesbians in the media, the only person I had as a calling card was Ellen DeGeneres, who was quite butch, very pretty, but she was nothing like me. She didn't have the same interests as me, and that's the only celebrity lesbian I could call off on the top of my head.
So who could you now? Would there be other?
There's just everyone. The internet is filled with people who are like me, who are very different to me, who, you know, everyone has someone who is able to make them feel comfortable about who they are.
And in fact, lots of glamorous Hollywood celebrities, because in the article, so Lela was in a Times article, quoted in a Times article on Saturday, about a new Channel 4 series going out tomorrow night called Bisexual. And they had pictures of, like, Amber, who's the ex?
Amber Heard?
Yes, so she's with someone. And it says the media, and then who else? That beautiful model with the eyebrows, Cara Delevingne. Yeah. With a picture with different kind of, again, celebrity women. So it says the press often call them close friends because they don't want to be the person who gets sued for outing them. But we see those images. So that's quite either encouraging or normalising, whichever way you want to put it.
Yeah.
I want to quote you something you said. You're quoted in that article saying that 90% of the people who respond to you on Tinder are couples who want a threesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, does that insult you, or what does that?
I think it's very much a London thing. I think it's probably when I was on Tinder a couple of years ago, and you know, again, this was a time even before I came out, and I just set my settings in a different way and thought, who's out there? Maybe this is a community I can get involved in finally, and you know, out myself in this way. And a lot of people did, as couples, have these accounts saying, you know, well, we're just looking for a woman.
Yeah, they're sort of experimenting, aren't they? Probably?
Yeah, which I guess is slightly insulting, but also understandable, because that does exist, and I'm in no place to judge anybody. But I think if you're looking for maybe an actual partner, or you want to go on some dates and see how that makes you feel, and that's the response you're getting, it still kind of reiterates that ideal that not only bisexuality is a choice that you can just kind of throw someone into your existing relationship, and that's, you know, a nice fun aspect of it, but that it's a sexualized thing, that it's not actually
rather than a really emotional sense of identity.
So if you are going on apps and you're looking for this, and you're only being sexualized because of your choice, it introduces a weird.
You're sort of being commodified, aren't you? It's back to the pornification
of women.
That's such a common image on porn, isn't it? The idea of a man watching the two women and being turned on, joining in.
Exactly.
I'm going to move us on, ladies, because we've got some questions and some comments. It's such a hot topic today. I'm hoping a lot of you write into us. Have your, hot in always. So don't forget, if you have a question, be sure to let us know in the comments below. We also get comments all week, people email in, so some of the things we read out are from emails we've had in the week. So I think we've covered this a bit. Ladies, how do you think online dating has impacted on cross-gender attitudes to sex and love?
Well, I know that, I don't know about cross-gender. I know from my own perspective and the research we've done that in terms of the blending of cultures and people sort of travelling long distances and overcoming those kind of barriers, online dating's definitely changed the landscape. And of course there are lots of what we call e-families now. So you know, we know that there's about 18 eHarmony babies born every day in the UK.
Really?
Things like that they're a lovely, you know, benefit of online dating, but the more racy stuff you probably have more of a view on.
Oh God, I would hope not.
It's a big it's a big question, isn't it?
Sexualising Lela.
Thanks, guys.
Jackie.
I think, like you said, online dating has such opportunity. It introduces you to people you would never meet otherwise. That does mean people's sexual preferences, their choices, the things they want to explore about themselves have this brand new landscape to to go wild in. But it also does mean you can find love and you can have babies if that is also that's your choice, and that's the nice part of online dating. You're also very able to say, I am looking for love, or I'm looking for this, or I'm looking for this, and be unapologetic about it, which is...
I would say that there is there is insight that there's a paradox of too much choice. So online dating, you know, it has some marvellous benefits, but there is also that sense of there's so much going on, isn't there, online? And there's constantly, especially with your swipe apps, there's sort of a never-ending menu, a sort of like carousel.
Yep.
And I can see why people come to us and say we feel like we've lost our sense of intimacy and we're a bit lost.
Or overwhelmed.
Yeah, we're a bit lost.
And then, like, I think what you're really saying is, if you know yourself, but that is quite a difficult thing to do when you're 18 to 24, or where you're just starting out.
Absolutely.
Even like you said, it took you 2 decades to not just come out, really know who you were, and that's constantly evolving, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I went to a talk by Susie Orbach, you know, Fat as a Feminist, one of our most famous psychotherapists. She, unbeknownst to me, had split up with her husband of 25 years and gone off with the writer Jeanette Winterson. Ooh. But she was talking about this new thing she'd come across, which she was calling post-heterosexuality.
Wow,
kind of middle-aged women. Me and all my mates in our 50s were like, oh, that's interesting, post-heterosexuality. So, that's a kind of interesting idea of our times, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which, again, we might come on to later. Let me take the first question here, because we've got our first audience question. Jed asks, regardless of age, does the panel think that open relationships can ever work in the long run? Oh, that's a bit of a left... left field.
I would say yes, and this is only based on people I know in my personal life. I've seen people who really struggle to be in a monogamous relationship with each other, explore that option and have a very strong, very communicative, very loving relationship. And I think those are all of the things that everyone is looking for when they are looking for love. It's not for everyone. It wouldn't be for me. It wouldn't be for most of the friends that I have. But I think for the right people who have more than one sexual impulse, or maybe they're open to lots of different types of people and feel those needs are met by different people in different ways, if that is what gives them the strongest relationship, then I think it can absolutely work.
I think we've talked about this a little bit. We've touched on this, the idea of polyamory.
Well, polyamory is potentially something that is on the rise according to the future of dating. But I suppose I'm more of a traditional person. I think from a personal point of view, I would find it too difficult. I'm too sensitive to share the person I love with other lovers, and that's just the way I'm wired. But you know, I know people that do. So you know, what works for you, fine. You know, but I just think I'm too insecure. I don't think I'd be able to relax.
But that's also your personal preference.
Yeah,
exactly. You're not looking for that. You want one person.
Yeah, I find it like one person is enough for me to focus on. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm quite an intense person. Yeah. And when I feel something for someone, I mean, I choose to be single a lot of the time. So when someone comes along that I really do fall in love with, I really want to focus on them. Yeah. So, but you know, never say never again. I mean, you just don't know.
So although polyamory is on the increase, is it still a tiny percent?
It's still niche.
What, 1%, well, 5%? What's the stats say?
It was something like that. It was very low and marginal, but, you know, that was sort of also future gazing. Okay. So the suggestion being that it will rise. But I don't know if either of you seen the documentary about the Mormon community in Utah? Yes. There's one on Netflix, and there's a guy... And there's this whole, it's quite interesting because you see these polyamorous families where the man has several wives and they're sort of sister wives. And some of them work brilliantly and some of the women are really happy and the men. But others you see, it just depends. Like some of them really don't, those sort of families, you know, so the women feel like they're rivals, and one or two of them get emotionally very distressed. Yeah. And even the man that you think, in an old-fashioned way, you think, oh, it must be his dream come true. He's like exhausted dealing with all the different emotions and responsibilities. Not the sex, but the emotions. And it's like, you know, particularly a certain time of the month when everyone harmonises, I just want to leave town. That's so, yeah. You
see, interesting, I was going to say, it's just my prejudice. I have no sort of client experience of this, or my own, really. So it's kind of always, but my impression is, it always, like, women are doing it to keep men happy, or where it exists in cultures, it's always the man with many wives because he can afford them and it's a status thing.
It lacks equality.
Yes.
A lot of the time, yeah.
And so the idea that I can't think I've ever heard of a woman in...
Well, there's a perception that that's the way men are wired. They need lots of choice, whereas women just are emotional creatures and we only need one option.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's quite sexist.
And every statistic ever would say that's completely right.
Exactly. That research with the monkeys.
Yeah.
You know, that women, do you know that? That women
were
aroused.
The monkeys.
Do you know that?
The monkey.
Oh, they were doing what aroused us, sort of genitals were wired up. It's kind of big research. Men were either aroused by images of men if they were... That was quite black and
male
white.
monkeys?
No. They were shown a variety of images very quickly. And women were aroused by, like, everything, including images of monkeys mating, whereas men, if they had identified straight with either women, men, it didn't really have a lot
because of the empathy that women often do have, and that's purely scientific. That's not the preamble of female brain, but that's that women feel empathy in sexual situations, be that animals or something that reminds me of sex. Yeah, because the men are seeing the visual act and they can say, I could be that man in that act, where the women go,
can relate
it's sensual.
Yeah. Okay. I thought they were using it as an explanation that women actually had at least a high libido, maybe higher.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Yeah. I'll move on to the next question. Thank you. Oh, she's a great guest, isn't she? Okay, so do you have a question to join in our very lively session this morning? Write your questions in the comments and we will be taking more of your questions after this look at one of eHarmony's many happy love stories.
It makes you think about dating and relationships in a completely different way. Outside of eHarmony, I think it would be very hard to think about core values, and certainly meeting somebody for the first time, it's usually very, very difficult to know what their core values are.
Even on our first date, it was probably quite clear that we shared that connection.
My name's Rebecca.
And my name's Alex.
And we've been together for 5 years. We chose eHarmony for various reasons. I really liked the fact that it was a paid service and you knew that people were taking it more seriously.
I found that the people that were suggested to me were very good matches generally. We had a lot in common, or we shared similar values, and that was really important to me.
We have loads in common. To start off with, just our personalities are very similar. I think we've got a very similar sense of humour. We're both into music. We like going for walks, we like going to restaurants. But yeah, the underlying values as well. Our morals are very, very similar, aren't they? And certainly I could tell within the first few dates that what we were going to have was, you know, a successful relationship, and you know, we've come really far.
Welcome back. You're watching Love Decoded, brought to you by eHarmony. I'm Jackie Marston, and today I'm joined by Rachael Lloyd from eHarmony and lifestyle blogger Lela London. We're talking intergenerational attitudes to sex. Very juicy topic, so how it's changed in the generations, what's going on today with young people. So if you have any thoughts on that or questions, please join in with the conversation in the comments now. And Andrew asks us, my mum recently joined an online dating site. She's in her late 50s and her sex life is far more active than mine. I'm mid-20s. Is this normal? Oh, thank you very much for that, Andrew. Ladies, what do we think? I think Andrew sounds a little bit envious of his mum, which is...
Over to you as the guest expert.
It's normal, isn't it? It's all normal. You don't lose your libido at any age. You don't lose the want for intimacy. And if she's actively going out and looking for partners, and Andrew might not be, then if she's having a busier time, then that's as normal as it will be for her. Andrew, get yourself on a dating. Yourself an eHarmony. Yeah, absolutely. There is that thing probably within that question of that we always hate the idea, it's a sort of Oedipal thing, isn't it, of our parents having sex.
Yes.
They have sex lives.
I agree. I like to think my parents only ever did it, how many kids have they got? 4 times?
Yes, exactly.
And that's it.
That's very common.
And that was with tops. Yeah, they had all their clothes on.
Hole in the sheet. Yeah, it's yucky. We don't want to, I don't know what the psychological roots of that is. It's like they're our parents, they're in a box, we want them to be desexualised in a way. So I think if your parents have split up, either are dating a lot, God forbid, telling you details, that is a bit... Andrew, tell your mum that's a bit...
Too much information.
Too much information. But there are... I haven't got the statistics on this, but I have been reading, because SDTs amongst the over 50s...
The Silver Surfer lot,
have been increasing, haven't they? So there is definite evidence.
Well, actually, older even, the 60s and 70s, So STDs are more prevalent amongst their, percentage-wise in their generation than in younger gens. And that's because they're embracing the new liberating atmosphere.
And the digital technology.
And the digital technology, yeah.
Not really the eHarmony crowd, unless they're looking for the next partner, which some might be. Maybe they're going to have a little, get it out their system.
We do know there's a rise in silver dating, definitely. And that the average age of the online data is going to go up because basically we will have generations in the future of people that have only ever grown up with digital kind of lifestyle. So, you know, if you think about older people now, it's the more progressive ones that are online dating, probably. You know, when you talk about someone in their 60s, they're a bit more adventurous. Yeah. Whereas, you know, a couple more generations and it'll just be mainstream.
Yeah, when the millennials are in that. And So, but I'm wondering also back to this idea of pornification of society, hypersexualization, whether that is then liberating if you're in your 50s and 60s and feel when you were a boomer and you missed out. I think there were boomers, the earlier boomers, who missed out on the swinging 60s. Yeah, like my parents, they're in their 80s now.
Well, I know, actually, maybe I won't bring my mum up. Maybe.
So they may have married their first boyfriend, girlfriend, or not had many partners because you didn't really, or it was frowned upon, and then maybe been in a long marriage, which is now broken up, split up, whatever, or maybe a bereavement.
That's right.
So now thinking, I want a bit of fun. Or that would be your optimistic, because I love your optimism, or feeling a bit of peer pressure, because I know 50-something friends who their friends say, oh, get out their date. They don't really, they're a bit scared of it, but they sort of feel they have to. They feel a bit of pressure to do that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Which I think, again, the younger people are feeling, really. This pressure to...
There's a lot of pressure on people to date. But I read some research, a new study in America by a casual dating app, whose name I won't mention, basically says that a lot of millennials are now quite proud and liberated about being single. They no longer think single has to be temporary, and they no longer feel that they sort of have to sort of, you know, get rid of it.
Right, that's good.
What I'm saying is the stigma is gone. Whereas I think older generations, it was like, how can you still be single? Well, how can you be single, Jackie? You're just so attractive. You know, it's all of that. And it was always aimed at women more than men. Always. There's something wrong with you if you haven't coupled up. What's going on? Do you think that's so true?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think men have always traditionally been more known and more stereotyped for being somebody that can and will date as many women as they want, or sleep,
which is probably unfair too, because I know Aaron, that's behind the scenes, is a very nice man.
We must get Aaron on as a guest one day. Yeah, no, sorry, Lela, carry on.
No, it's true, and you have these expectations that men feel they have to live up to, whether that's their choice and that's how they personally want to date or be with people. And women at the same time, if you are attractive by anyone's estimations, or you're smart by anyone's estimations, if you're somehow not with somebody, then there's something wrong with you, which is a terrible idea and something that perpetuates across all ages.
It's almost like just go out with anyone. Just, you know, for God's sake.
You deserve it. You deserve that guy over there.
Well, we did that whole episode a couple on settling.
Settling.
Which is, you know, terrible, and the psychological and emotional costs of thinking that might even be an option. Yeah. It's terrible.
Well, I remember there were theories in my family about somebody who was older than me, who had been a male, who had been single for a long time, just assumed, oh, he must be gay. There was no evidence to support that at all, but it was just like, well, he never got coupled up. So men do get hit with that stick too. Absolutely. So I'm really pleased that people don't feel they have to be in a relationship, because that's not what we're about either.
Well, I think if we go back
to the choice, you know,
the fluidity, which is sort of our, you know, topic for today in a way, or different over the different generations. If that fluidity of these 18 to 24-year-olds isn't the 43%, isn't just a kind of trendy them rebelling against generations that have come before us. If that carries on, this idea I fall in love with a human being rather than a gender, and that my own gender can kind of manifest in different ways. I can wear different clothes. I mean, I really like that, this sort of fluidity of dressing. As a lifelong tomboy, I love the fact that I could wear more male clothes, and someone will say, like, why do you always wear trousers, or why don't you wear makeup?
Or God forbid you might be a lesbian.
Well, yeah.
Honestly, come out next week.
All the years I've had short hair, people would say, like, yeah, that's a lesbian haircut.
It's not a lesbian haircut, though. That's a bob, isn't it?
Oh, not now, but for years I had it very short.
Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah. I love short hair. Really.
Oh, I'd love to see this.
This is the longest I've ever had my hair.
But now you can be hair fluid.
Hair fluid. Where was I going with that argument? That, I would like to think that if that continues, there won't be this stigma against singleism, as that movement in the States called it. Yeah. Because the fluidity, people will pair up. They might pair up to have a child. They might parent for a bit together, co-parent. And fluidity will come into everything.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be a brave new world rather than this sort of dystopian that the Japanese are just having sex with sex dolls?
Yeah. It's too restrictive to say that men are one thing and women are another, or gay relationships are something and straight relationships are another. I think everyone has to be very open-minded and very fluid about their approach, not only to themselves and who they are in their relationships, but those around them, because at the end of the day, if we're all just looking for love or looking for partners or trying to be good people, if we're open-minded towards everyone's approach towards that, then...
But you also said, you were quoted in this Times article, that when you first when you wrote that piece for the Metro, and you came out, you went into a bar, a lesbian bar, correct me if I'm wrong with this story, and you were chatting up a very attractive dancer, woman, and she said, you said, I've only just come out or something, and she said, this isn't the place for you. Oh, you said, I'm bi.
Yeah.
And she said, this isn't the place for you, babe.
Yeah.
Bugger off kind of thing. And you were really, what, shocked, upset?
I was so surprised. I think when anyone gets to a point of accepting something about themselves that either they're uncomfortable with or they've been struggling with, and for me that was being bisexual, and I just, said, no, I'm doing it, like this is who I am, telling the world and going out to a gay bar, and then thinking I was in this very safe, welcoming environment, and still somebody in that environment went, no, you're not a lesbian, you're bisexual, that's not what this place is about, really did surprise me. And it's those attitudes, I think, having these conversations and being very open about everyone's weird quirks or approaches towards relationships is so imperative, because without that, we're always going to have people that go, no, you're not welcome here, or don't know anyone like that, so don't like it.
But you wrote, or you said that you get a lot of that in the gay community.
Yeah, it does exist. It does exist in everybody. There's people, I think it's a wrong thing also to assume that the gay community or the straight community are one type of person. There's going to be good and bad people everywhere. And people that aren't accepting or very inclusive in all sorts of communities or minorities. It was surprising, I think, because you go in with guns blazing thinking, finally, here I am.
I really felt for you in that story. I got poor woman.
Yeah, but it's also, I think that drives you on to continue to talk about these sorts of things, because I don't want anyone to go through anything like that. I don't want somebody to feel comfortable with themselves and get knocked down at a place where they think it would be accepted.
Right, ladies, another next question. Iris writes, I'm in my mid-20s dating an older woman, and the other day she called me a snowflake because I got annoyed about her failure to recycle stuff. Is this fair? Iris, is this fair? Whenever someone says, that's not fair, I kind of think that has triggered the inner child in you, being told off by your mum or dad or at school. But anyway, we'll park that, ask the experts, of which I am one.
Well, I'm dying to know what you think about snowflakes and all of that.
Yeah. Of course, because you are a representative of the younger generation here today.
Yeah, we mustn't be discriminating.
The snowflake community representative. No, I mean, Iris, you're not a snowflake. I think caring about recycling, that's nothing. But again, there is always going to be generational differences. And if that's not something that she was thinking about ever, and it's something you're introducing, maybe that willingness to completely go, ooh, that's something I should be caring about, but I'm not, so I'm going to demean you caring about it.
Yes.
That has nothing to do with a generational difference. That's a communication that needs to happen between you.
Absolutely, very good. Spot on. Should we swap chairs? Yes, no, it's about communication. What I would say, never in those intimate conversations, no naming, blaming or shaming, which is like the finger wagging.
That's so boring.
No, Rachel, I tell you, that is the key to a long-lasting, happy relationship. As soon as you start saying, you are, anything, up we go, we get defensive, or we withdraw from intimacy.
Yeah.
It's classic, but you have to name it as an I statement. Oh, I feel really upset that you don't recycle because I really care about the planet. Can I show you this film about landfill that really upset me the other night? It's about your emotion. You're looking mistrustful.
I have a millennial lodger.
Oh, yes?
Actually, I should be careful here. I've had who may not stay for long now, but who, and I've had 2 or 3 that are very pro-recycling. So the recycling generation, we weren't, again. We didn't grow up with recycling. It came in later when we were adults, really. I think that's fair to say. And so what's happening in my flat now is that there is a bin. I actually bought an extra bin for the cardboards because they were just being thrown into sort of bags. And then there was a kind of cardboard town that would spring up around the bin. But what is happening is more than one of these lodgers never take the stuff out. So they're just, you know, it's like I've got a cardboard ghetto. So what happens in the end is what they don't know, and they're going to find out now, is I scoop everything up and throw it in the normal rubbish. Sorry.
Rachel, so they only half recycle.
But it's not. It's all very.
Rachel's Lodgers, wholly recycle.
I mean, it's all very well.
Iris
good
is going to be losing it right now.
But you know, Lela, it's all very well to have good intentions, but take it out to the recycling.
No,
bin.
absolutely.
You know, that's half-assed.
Iris, did you hear that? Did you hear all this? You are in the right, Iris. We've got to save the planet, and you're not a snowflake. Don't go back to her.
And my dad says they take it all to the same place in the end.
Well, people do say that, but I'm not sure it's true.
I'm just causing trouble now. I'm
Maybe
being a
buy a
Gen X.
nice recycling bin.
Yeah.
Put a picture of you as a couple
Lela,
on
she's
it.
such a peacemaker. You should
But Lela would
join the UN.
Lela, you would take it out, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just let it build up into a sort of.
No, I'd probably throw it in the
Shanty.
trash, yeah, too, same as you.
You should do, but it's a bit of a passive-aggressive.
Good intentions and all, but...
I think everyone's pretending to be virtuous. That's what they're doing.
Maybe.
And you know what, in where I live as well, I've got obsessed with recycling now. But there's people that just throw everything by the recycling bin, so it becomes a fly tip. And then what happens? Westminster Council comes along, takes it all away in the normal lorry.
Iris, get in touch with Rachel via eHarmony, because
I need to vent. I need to vent.
We've got time for one more question.
Sorry, everyone.
One more question. Becca wants to know the free love baby boomers have lots to answer for, thinks Becca. They were the first generation to send divorce rocketing, and this damaged families. Very judgmental, Becca. What do we, the panel, think?
Lela, go on.
Well, as I was there...
What,
in the
your
60s.
baby? Okay.
No,
you look great, by the way, if you were there.
Did your baby boomer parents divorce?
Yes, they did. But everyone divorces.
But they're watching, so...
Oh, we won't go into that. I think it's, again, free love, if that's your inclination. That's not to blame for divorce. That's just something you should be embracing in open relationships or whatever you need. I don't think it's necessarily caused divorce or caused family.
It's a very complicated...
No, I think free love was probably a phase, and it was a bit of a euphemism for having a good time without consequences. But I think that the baby boomers have had it pretty good. They were the first generation to send divorce rocketing. It became socially acceptable in their, in the 70s. And
they changed the law as well, didn't they?
They did. They did. And actually, we wouldn't all want to be trapped in, the
50s.
To be fair, yeah, exactly. So some of that progress was brilliant, obviously. Yeah. But there's always going to be casualties. I do think the 60s created this kind of no consequence kind of theory that maybe people used as a kind of get out for actually sort of committing and being a committed, I don't know.
I don't know. I think the 60s generation cared about the planet. They were politically active.
Did they recycle?
I'm sure they started recycling.
Oh, okay, all right.
They did. I made a video 30 years ago for this charity called Away with Waste. Oh no, that's the name of our video. No, is that the charity? Anyway, that was 30 years ago. They were lobbying for councils to do recycling. And we filmed on a landfill. That's actually why I'm passionate about. No one else in my house is.
Oh, wow.
And they're really shocking shots. You do your aerial of all that stuff with the birds coming around, all this stuff we are burying, and it's going to come up.
Horrible,
it's
isn't it?
really disgusting. Yeah. So once you've seen that...
But don't you think we should also, if we're going to save the planet, we should all go vegetarian immediately?
Yes, that's probably true as well, about sort of stop eating red meat. We are so off topic, aren't we?
I know.
Kind of so
but it is
we also...
Yeah. Who would like a last word? Lela, you're our lovely guest. Have a last word here. About whatever, really. We could be talking...
No pressure.
Talk about the UN for a bit.
Yes, I think we should become a peacemaker.
No, I think the whole stream of conversation today has basically been about the changes in generations, the changes in people's approaches, how millennials affect that, how older generations are now getting in on millennial action and all that good stuff. But I think the best approach to have just as a collective is just that most of the time these people are changing their minds, are doing these things because they now feel able to. They feel that they have more rights than ever to be with the people they want to be with, to say the things they want to say, and to be these individuals and be proud to be these individuals. You know, people don't feel they're brave if they come out anymore. People just feel like that's a part of who they are. And that's a really good idea to have, whether you're 16 or 60.
Be who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in dating.
Hugely positive.
Yeah.
We will end on that hugely positive
I'm
note, shall
happy
we,
with that
Rachel?
bombshell. I think it's good.
Us Eeyores in the corner for the time being. So that was our last question, our last comments from our lovely guest, Lela. If we didn't get to your questions this week, join us at 12:30 next Tuesday, when our topic will be single parent dating. For more dating advice in the meantime, just Google eHarmony dating advice, and for all our dating articles and tips, there's loads on the website and some really good gems there. So many thanks again to our guests, Rachel and the peacemaking Lela. Have a great week and goodbye.